welcome to another Modern Mind, Ancient Book. We're going back to move forward. We're finding a love for the law, the prophets, and the writings. My name's Roger. I'll be your host. We are entering into our second question of, accusations that can be leveled against a Gentile or even a Jewish believer who is, to some degree, greater or lesser, respecting or practicing the things of Moses, the law. And so, and let me get this really square right now. The purified Judaism of Jesus is not rabbinic Judaism. That being said, it takes knowledge to determine the difference. That's why we have Ryan again with us here today. He is a master of arts. Did I get that correctly this time, Ryan?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we got Yusong with us, who is a very talented mathematician. You hold a PhD or something, don't you, Yusong?
No, I don't have those dissertations, so.
No.
I got a master's.
You got a master's. Okay, well, hey, that's nothing to sneeze at. You're a very educated and capable man, and I'm glad both of you are here. Thank you so much for doing this with me. So today we're going to talk about the shocking truth that grace and Torah were always on the same side. That God has always been the same God that we find in the expression of Jesus. And I want to make one point before we get started. The Exodus people were not Torah observant. We don't know what they practiced. It doesn't really tell us what their religion was while they were in Egypt, but they were in Egypt for 400 years. But by the grace of God, because of the eternal covenant made with Abraham, who had great faith, who's the father of faith, who was also not Israeli, the Hebrews were called from Egypt. And when they were called, there were Egyptians that came out with them. Because he chose a people to put his name on, not because they deserved it, but because grace and mercy were always the reason. After the fall in Genesis, we learn that human beings followed a deceiver, and we made a very bad decision. We decided that to be like God before God wanted us to be. I think the tree was in the garden because eventually he would have shared it with us. He just told us not to do it now. But we disobeyed. We made a bad mistake. And ever since then, God has always had compassion on people. He's always been full of grace. I know the Old Testament seems to not be full of grace, but it was a time and a place that required certain laws and certain actions. But if you look at creation, he told us to be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth. And his desire for us was to live peacefully with him and with one another and stay devoted to our families and raise them in his name and take care of animals and eat food. Our job was to be good learners. And because we wanted to be like him, we left too soon. We didn't learn what we should have. And it's because of that the world is the way it is. And it's because of that there are evil things recorded in the Bible. But one of the blessings is that in the Bible, the things that are recorded, they're not flattering to human beings, but it is flattering to God, because God continued to save people. When the flood came, he saved Noah. When Abraham came and the nations were getting evil and Sumeria was about to be utterly destroyed, he brought Abraham out. And he created a whole new people, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And from them, he called a bunch of Egyptians who probably had some Canaanite beliefs too, and who might have somehow relied still on God, because we know how the slope is. The further you get away, the less you do, the less you remember. And then he re-sanctified them. The first generation, they couldn't even come into the land because they didn't believe right, which is a testimony to grace. He called a people that didn't even believe right. And then you get to, the new covenant, and here we are with the Jesus who we murdered. but he still thought us worthy to call us. Now, the question is what do we do with Paul, Rai? People say that Paul is anti-Jewish practices. Do you agree with that?
I disagree with that. Paul was very much caring about his Jewish community. He was a Pharisee, like he was trained by some of the most gifted people in that sect during this time. Like he was very much Jewish, and he even has kind of a discourse in Romans 9 through 11 where he's specifically talking about how much Israel means to God, and he even puts in his own insights as well about how much Israel means to him. So it's very, very clear from what Paul writes and what others wrote about Paul, including in Acts, that he was very much knowledgeable about the customs and culture and beliefs of his people, and he really cared so much about the nation of Israel and how they were lost without Messiah.
That's right. Yeah, and Acts 15, okay? Abstain from blood, very Jewish. Don't eat meat sacrificed to idols. That would very much offend Jewish people, that, right? And abstain from sexual immorality. Keep the family sacred. All very Jewish ideas. And Torah at that, right? So, and Paul went there to get that information. Yeah. He had to go settle this problem he was having. And okay, so let me read this, because this is actually a problem for Jewish people, because the Jewish Messiah has to keep Torah, and he has to teach the nations Torah, and I believe Jesus does. But we have a statement here from Paul that I could see be very offensive, okay? So, then this is from Galatians 5, starting in verse 11. But I, brothers, if I still preach circumcision, why am I still persecuted? Then the stumbling block of the cross has been abolished. I wish that those troubling you would even mutilate themselves. So Paul is seeing a trend among Jewish people in Gentile areas where people are coming to faith in, the purified Judaism of Jesus. And these, Judaizers are telling them that they must be circumcised. Now, isn't that a problem? Because the Abrahamic covenant required circumcision. So is Paul saying that circumcision is not necessary anymore?
Well, I think what Paul is saying is that it's things like circumcision that don't give you your ultimate, if we can say, forever or eternal status with God. It's not a designation of faith that's required in order to be in a right relationship with God. And I think that's where the Judaizers, were going wrong, in that they were saying, oh, you must be circumcised, you must follow the laws of Moses in order to be saved. But that goes against what basically we know about Jesus' teachings and how the teachings of the church spread throughout the Roman Empire. It wasn't Jesus plus, it was just simply Jesus.
That's right, because he was the new Moses. He was to teach the people, to lead the people to truth. And so, I go back to this, right? So you got Matthew 5, right? Which is the Christian manifesto, the Beatitudes. And here he says, do not think that I've come to abolish the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I say to you, unless heaven and earth pass away, Not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until all is accomplished. So I can confidently say that Rabbi Jesus believes that the law is good and that it is alive. Then he says, whoever then annuls one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. Boom, right there. It has nothing to do with salvation. Where you put your faith. If God has become the one who redeemed you, just like the people were taken through the waters in Exodus from the king of the earth who wished to destroy them, but God became their perfecter, or their protector, and their perfecter by taking them through on dry land and causing the chaos waters to collapse in, which was a recreation moment. It was a new Genesis. It was God alone who justifies, not by what you do, but what he did. Is that fair?
Yeah, man. I think that's fair.
Now, the other part of that is, you'll be least in the kingdom of heaven if you refuse to keep any Torah, which I don't think you can, because if the Spirit is inside of you, just like Jeremiah said, it's going to teach you the law. I often look at Christians, and because I love the law, and I've studied it a lot, I'm not as knowledgeable as I want to be, but a lot, I see the people who I know have the Spirit, they keep the law. They just do. And so it's a thing for me. The Messiah definitely teaches Torah, whether we know it or not. I just think we'd be better off to know it well. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. If it was important to Jesus, it should be important to us too.
That's right. What about you? You got anything to add?
No, it's perfectly summed up, and I think that there is a little distinction there. The Sinai covenant to Yeshua, to Jesus, was binding because he is still under the Mosaic law, and he fulfilled it, right? And as of now, whoever is in Jesus, in Christ, and as you said, the Spirit is dwelling in us, and teaching and leading us towards that righteousness of the law, and in the sense that we're also fulfilling the law through Yeshua, through his sacrificial atonement for us.
Well, and
So,
do you want to lie, Yusong? Do you want to lie? It becomes apprehensible to you, right? It's not something you want to be.
Yeah.
So you keep the law. I mean, it's just so God's. So for me, Moses is a wise man, and the law is wisdom. Now, there's some parts in there, and if you listen to the podcast, you'll hear I talk about some of the law and how they came about. But here's the crux of my argument, okay? Jesus says in Matthew 5:19, "But whoever keeps and teaches, then he will be great in the kingdom of heaven." So we go back to the previous question. If you keep it, are you radical? Are you a Judaizer? Or are you just devoted? And I always land in the same place. I love my Jesus who saved me. And I want to be like him. And I want to do the things that are pleasing to him.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We're going to be on to the third question. So stay tuned.